والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه أما بعد. So as we have seen throughout the past day presentations, we can see that if we compare it to last year's Congress, we can see that there is a shift from the attention to halal into like a wider scope of the industry. It's not only the halal dimension. So even for the past, let's say few years, 3-4 years, the halal dimension of the industry has been quite limited because the Islamic finance industry for the past 50 years has been really expanding and investing on the halal dimension, and we noticed that there is like a certain dimension that not really covered through just the monoscope of the halal or the halalization, as Brother Amr has mentioned in his presentation yesterday. So today my presentation is going to be trying to revisit the concept of halal, try to see what really works within it, what really needs to be added to it in order to make better exposure or better return on investment. So security, sovereignty, or sustainability of food in Islam. A call for the halal TAYYIB industry. So there are a lot of discourses that is really dominate the food security and the food governance model. So we will try to revisit each one of them, try to really problematize some of them, see how does it fit within the Muslim framework, and then we can really get to conclusions and see whether it really fits, what really fits within the Islamic mindset and what doesn't fit within it. So outline why food governance now. Why we are talking about food governance now. We started seeing such views in those who come from the UK. We saw this with the COVID lockdown. We started seeing the vulnerability of our food systems, that if any shock that happens in the market, then we can really reach starvation quite quickly. And what is really the problem there? What really has brought this vulnerability? And how we can integrate that within our our argumentation or our rationalization of the halal industry and the halal experts in this context. So here we can see the share of people living in urban and rural areas. We can see that in 2007, this is where the urban population surpassed the rural population of the world. What is the significance of that? This means that the majority of the global population now really depends on supply chains. If any disruption happens to the supply chain, to the food markets, then the majority of people become vulnerable to hunger and maybe starvation. We have seen, for example, what's really happening across the Muslim world because of lots of conflicts, lots of violence. Lots of people are on the brink of starvation. And this is primarily not only because of the violence, but again because of the really heavy dependence on food supply chains. And we need to think beyond just really the numbers, how much people need in food. We need as well to think of how we can get them access to food supply that doesn't really make them vulnerable to all of these shocks within the system. Again, this is another way we can see that the rural, now we have more urban people than rural, and if we compare that to the year 1500, we can see that the majority of the people back then were living in rural setting, and now the majority of the global population are living in urban settings. This means that we are really moving. Yes, we are providing engineering solutions for bringing the exact amount of, or the needed amount of food for the people in the urban spaces. However, this is quite still a vulnerable position. This map shows the agricultural imports and exports. We can see those are in red or purple, they are pretty much the net importers of food. We can see that the majority, or almost half of the world's countries, they have, they are net importers, and they have put them in quite a vulnerable position to the shocks in the food market. We can see like quite surprising Egypt and Sudan, despite the fact they have Nile, and Nile is the longest and the most most prestigious water or river in the world, and they are net importers of food, and we can see the vulnerability they are in now, and they are really vulnerable within that. So this has to be taken into consideration when we really think about the halal industry. So certainly they are following halal rules, but the problem is there is a hidden dimension that's not really given much attention, which we will be discussing in our speech today. So, dominant arguments on food security. So, when you survey the literature, you can see that there are a lot of talks about resilience and adaptability. It's pretty much trying to see and to test how the environment can really be susceptible to shocks, and how our agriculture really impact the environment, and how the environment are resilient to the human activities, human economic activities, and when it really goes into like because sometimes human activity can really reach a dead end that really can kill the ecosystem. So it's very much most of the research really revolve around the environment and these two dynamics. Types of resilience, engineering resilience, and socio-ecological resilience. So engineering resilience is how much needed for people. However, socio-ecological resilience is trying to bring the socio-ecological dimension to that formula, and trying to understand beyond just what's needed in the market. Resilience strategies, reformist versus transformationalist. Whether we need to reform our systems, just keep them as is, but try to fix them and keep going on, or really try to transform everything. Try to bring new thoughts, new ideas, new paradigms to our food production. Circular economy, another argument. Food sovereignty is one strong argument, as well as how nations really become sovereign over their food sources. Because if you see different countries, some countries are really vulnerable to foreign control, because simply they don't really own their destiny, because they are not importers of food. And if the foreign governments really decide to punish these countries, they can simply just cut the food supply to them. So food sovereignty is quite a substantial argument. Food sustainability, again, this is trying to bring the environmental dimension, this replaceability of the food systems, whether we are damaging the food systems or not. So what could be problematic within these different arguments in food security paradigm? One problem is the hegemonic neoliberalism. So neoliberalism pretty much thinks about controlling the supply, controlling markets, controlling commodities. So most of the solutions that and policies really used by them pretty much reflects this hegemonic. We want to control the supply chain, and even we have seen certain behaviors, like some governments even throw food in the sea, in the ocean, just because they want to control the prices in the market. So this is because it's pretty much controlled by this hegemonic neoliberalist notion. Securitization, fear, and inequality. Sometimes some political parties, some politicians use fear in order to control the masses, because fear is really an easy product that you can really use across the board. It's like, if you don't really elect me, you don't choose me for the office, then there will be doomsday behind me. So it's pretty much like an easy product to sell for the masses. And again, some of them, it's really related to food. So if you don't really elect me and choose my policies, then eventually you will face starvation and face hunger. Greenwashing, again, greenwashing is trying to, despite the fact this is like quite a good concept, however, a lot of companies, they started playing. We have seen, for example, Volkswagen and the scandal they had back in 2015 with the emissions that they had, and eventually it costed everybody, it lost trust of the consumers, and it costed the company a lot. So greenwashing is happening, and it is quite damaging as well to some companies who are honest about their green policies. However, this is again one of the problematic lines. Individualism and greed, again, most of the economic new classical and new liberal or slash new liberal policies and economics, as discussed by Professor Ali, is pretty much entrenched within this individualistic and greed. We are here not as a group, we are here as individuals, and everybody's mission on this planet is just to take as much as possible benefit from the surrounding, from the environment, from the economy, even from within the society itself. Hedonism is one last as well problem that we have identified. This is particularly related to some practices in Western economies. We have seen, for example, La Tomatina and Pamplona festivals, where they go through the streets and they start wasting as much as 130 tons of tomato every year just for having fun, because life is all about having fun for them. We have seen as well on social media, a lot of people are wasting lots of food just to have fun, just to have more views, and it is, unfortunately, it is causing a lot of harm to our food security and food situation. So, food discourse and Homo Islamicus. Homo Islamicus is pretty much straightforward. Homo is human in Greek, and Islamicus is the Islam, or a Muslim man. So this is the Muslim man, how a Muslim man really perceives food from the eyes of Islam. So here we can see that you have on the left-hand side we have the Homo sociologicus. It's pretty much where it's based on Marxist arguments. So at the center, at the heart of this argument, or at the heart of a communist or a socialist, it's collectivism. So everybody should own everything. So there is a public ownership of everything. Then socialism is the way of how you distribute things to others. And at the end is the planned consumption. So if we take in the middle here the Homo Islamicus, at the heart of Homo Islamicus is the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are believers in Allah, and Allah is the one who really tells us what to do and what not to do, what to avoid. Islam is the way, is the approach, is the practical things that you need to do in order to be a Muslim. And you have the ihsan, which is the utmost thing, which is the thing that really brings the beauty of, or the beauty dimension of Islam. While on the left-hand side, Homo economicus, we have at the heart is hedonistic individualism. This is what really differentiates the economic man, the man who thinks about just collecting as much materials as possible. And then capitalism is the way of distribution, how people are related to each other, how the resources are distributed. And mass consumption is the utmost aim. This is what we have to mass consume as much as we can, because we have mass produced through lots of engineering solutions. Unfortunately, we can see that a lot of Muslim practices now pretty much are within the hedonistic individualism. We are influenced by capitalism, we are influenced by new capitalist and new liberal thoughts and beliefs, and it's largely the catalyst of that is now social media. Social media is really pushing this capitalist mode of thinking into the wider public. However, there are some good elements to social media as well. Do I still have time? 3 minutes, okay. So the Homo-Islamic rationalization, how we can bring this different dimension to it. So, as Muslims know that we have 3 types of Tawheed. The way we, the relationship between us and the Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, and Tawheed al-Asma' al-Sifat. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is pretty much Allah is the Lord. He is the one who created us. And He is the one who owns us. While Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah is Allah is the Lord. He really tells us what to do and what not to do. So there are orders. You have to do this, you have to avoid that, you have to do that. And we as Muslims and believers, we have to follow the orders. And Tawheed al-Asma' al-Sifat, this is like the beauty dimension. This is the comprehensive dimension of anything that really needed for people in this life. So if we take, the whole purpose of really mapping this is to get the fiqh implication, the tayyib, the halal, and the wasatiyah. So we can see that the halal tayyib is, or the tayyib is the dimension that, and if we really map it to food, the food becomes tayyib not only when it really tastes good. Tayyib, it's mean purposeful. It has a purpose. It really can fit the human consumption, the needs that we have. Allah says in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. So Allah tells us to eat and drink, but it doesn't stop there. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا is like a big dimension that we need to think of, because israf is, Allah despises israf. Allah despises this wastefulness. That is happening. So halal, certainly halal has been spoken. So halal is pretty much the bare minimum requirement for, it's the legal requirement. You have to eat halal, but it doesn't end there. It has to be purposeful as well. So when you eat, you need to make sure that the food you eat gives you health, gives you strength, gives you meaning for your life. And then we have the wasatiyya dimension, which is about Asma' al-Sifat, pretty much having this middle path that is needed to avoid wastefulness. So Islam and food policy. So we have concluded that Islam and Islamic food discourse, purposeful security, Iman and Tayyib, constructive sovereignty, Islam, and this is the halal dimension that we have seen, and the benevolent sustainability is the ihsan, or the wasat, and the sharing of food. So, the food policy in Islam should be pretty much circular, trying to concentrate on this food sustainability, food security, and food sovereignty all together. Food is not only just to feed the body, it has to give dignity as well to people. This is where food sovereignty comes handy. So we can see this circular wastage recycling, ecosystem enhancement, food production. So all of that needs to feed into each other and keep the circularity of this halal tayyib model. There is a hadith, Sayyidina Muhammad said that the food of one, the main purpose of using that is that we need to see what is really the bare minimum, the bare requirement that can be helpful in conceptualizing food policy. So there is a hadith in Sahih Muslim, طعام واحد يكفي اثنين. So the food of one suffices two, and the food of two suffices four, and the food of four suffices 8. So there is like a ratio there, like a mathematical ratio that is quite catchy. So here we can see that there is the 1-4-2, or the 50% minimum requirement to bring this sovereignty, sustainability of food system, for food governance in Islam. So combining these two ratios, we can see that in order to achieve sovereignty, we need to at least have 50% based on this hadith, we should at least have 50% of the national required food to be produced locally, to make sure that there is sovereignty over our food sources. If things go wrong, then we can say, well, guess what? You know, King Faisal rahimahullah once said in 1973 that we can live without oil. We have our milk, we have our camels that give milk, and we have dates to suffice us. But because of this word, he was killed. Because this is really has shown that the food policy can be a penetrating point to have that can compromise the sovereignty of a nation. And as Muslims, we should think of sovereignty of our food sources. So, trying to bring that and marry that to Maqasid al-Sharia model for food governance, we have chosen Al-Malik Najjar Maqasid Sharia framework, which is the latest conceptualization or rationalization of Maqasid Sharia, which consists of 4 Maqasid Sharia dimensions and 8 corollaries. And we have mapped it, because of time we're not going to go in detail, but we have mapped it and we can see that different elements of the food policy can be really fit within these Maqasid Sharia framework to achieve benevolence, fairness, and moderation in consumption. Again, we have taken another hadith as well, when Sayyidina Muhammad said that مَا مَلَأَ ابْنِ آدَمَ وَعَاءً شَرًّا مِنْ بَطْنِهِ, the worst of the vessels that you can fill is is your stomach. So the least or the most that they can do is to fill it 1/3 for food, 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for breath. So from that we can really do the multiplication in order to get the 50% required for the Muslim. Then again, this is like trying to understand and conceptualize what could really constitute the bare minimum, what is really can bring this food sovereignty and food sustainability to Muslim nations. And I'm not going to go in details because of time. Wasatiyya, again, we need to have wasatiyya in our food policy, and we have to use the wasatiyya as the benchmarking tool to make sure that what we have is not too little and not too much. It doesn't really compromise our needs, and it doesn't go beyond into the israf, as we can see here. So neither taqtir nor israf. And just to close the presentation, we can see here the Bosnian, the trade balance between of agro-food between the European Union and Bosnia. We can see that Bosnia really imports most of its, this is the exports from the European Union or from the EU perspective. So these are the exports into Bosnia, and these are the imports from Bosnia. We can see that the level of trade is quite, the gap in trade is quite vast. There is the deficit between imports and exports. This, despite the fact, if we go to the figures of the Bosnian Office for Statistics, we can see that it is still, if we compare the proposed model of 50-50, Bosnia is still on the safe side. It has 67%. However, if we compare it with the figures of the European Union, we can see that there is like a big gap. Most likely this is from Croatia, because Croatia is just the next country, and it is the biggest business partner with Bosnia. However, Bosnia can do better as well, can reduce this deficiency in balance of trade. And to conclude, the Islamic view on food policy is more human-centric rather than the mainstream process-centric. So we try to think of the human, we try to think about the environment, this socio-ecological dimension, to change behavioral patterns in their daily consumption. So through moderation, through justice, sharing, and altruism, decentralizing development can reduce the strain of the public budget, which has been troubling governments since the global financial crisis. Again, decentralization has to be introduced within while we are thinking and making decisions about the food policy. And finally, food governance requires an integrated, holistic approach that promotes food rights, but also food responsibility. We have to think of this balanced approach. We have rights and responsibilities, rather than just access to food rights. Thank you so much.